Hey everybody, welcome to the Yole Poker YouTube channel. Today we're going to do our first poker vlog. So what a poker vlog is it's just me discussing a previous session. So we're going to talk about a cash game that I played about 10 days ago. Blinds with 50 cent $1. We'll go through a few hands and you will see them up on your screen. So you'll see the action and what my decision was. And you can decide for yourself whether I played them correctly or incorrectly. I will have a discussion while we're doing the hand, and we can go from there. So we'll start with our first one. I look down at Queen Jack unsuited. So I actually raised it to $3.50. The middle position also came along, and so did the one on the button. So we go to the flop. The flop comes Queen, Jack, 5, all different suits. Comes around to me. I check it. Middle possession checks. And the dealer decides on a raise to $3.50. So I've got a decision to make here. So whether I'm going to call or whether I'm actually going to raise. I actually decided on a raise, which I think in this position is probably the best bet. You don't want to get somebody along a little bit cheaply. So I made a raise to $9. The middle position folded and the button calls me, snap calls me. So I'm thinking at this stage he might have a queen with something else. Not quite sure, maybe a jack. This player can be quite loose and aggressive at cash game, so he could really have anything. But I think the correct play was probably to raise at $9 here, but I think there's something to be said about actually just pushing all in here, because there was already $10.50 in the pot, so an all-in bet would only have been really not quite double the pot, so it would. I think that's probably the best thing to do. But I did only make it $9 and he snap call. The turn is another 5, and comes obviously I'm the first to act, so I decided on a snap all in. Just thinking that there was obviously no reason why I would suspect the other player to have a 5, especially after calling a $9 raise. He snap calls, and obviously, of course, he's got the 5. Decided to call my raise pre-flop with 5-3, so offsuit. So we're all in there. We decided to run it twice, and both times I obviously lost, so I'm out $20 straight away. So looking back at the hand, I think probably, if I was to do it again, I probably would have raised a little bit pre, but I think $3.50 is right there though. I think that's 3.5 times the blind. So I know he's a loose, aggressive player. So maybe on the flop, I probably should have just pushed all in and taken the $10.50 pot down. Or it might have been $11 actually, but I think that's probably the correct play there. But I don't know. I think he might have actually still called it for 5 there, because I think he thought I was bluffing. But yeah, that's just a hard one, guys. So that one was a tough one. So I had to rebuy, obviously. So tough start to the night. Okay, so then we come to our second interesting hand of the night. I'm on big blind again. It's been probably about 40 minutes since I've got anything really decent. I bought in again for another 30 on top of the 20, so I'm now in for $70. And on big blind, under the gun, raise it to $11. Again, blinds are only 50 cents $1. So he raised it. It folds around to the same player that got me on the first hand, that is a loose, aggressive player. He calls the $11. Then it gets folded around to me, and I look down at pocket sevens. Now, I've got a decision again to make, because pocket sevens against 2 other players probably isn't an ideal spot, especially where I am in position, like I'm going to be first to act. So I did decide on a call here, but I can definitely see why you would lay this down. But just against these 2 players, one being very loose and aggressive, so the caller being loose and aggressive, I decided that he could have been calling with anything. And then the one under the gun is generally he's a pretty good player, but can be quite aggressive as well. And is known to sort of raise with non-premium hands at times. So I thought potentially I might be able to get a little bit of his stack, and he only had $25 left in his stack before raising the $11. So he yeah, so he's only had another 14 behind. So I thought potentially there might be a call. If it all comes small, there might be a chance that I've got the best hand. So anyway, the flop comes Queen 7-5. So yeah, we snag the trips there. We snag, love to hit sets there. So I'm in first position to act, obviously. So I just check it. The player under the gun goes all in for his last $14. The guy on the button just flat calls, which I thought was actually a little bit of a weird play for this player, because being loose and aggressive, normally he would raise it. But yeah, he just flat calls. It's all unsuited, so I don't know what my correct play here was when it comes to should I raise him or should I just flat call. But I just flat called as well. The turn comes king, and I check it again. Then it goes around to the button, and he pushes all in for the remainder of my stack, which was another, like I said, I think I was in for 50 in total, so another $50. So I obviously snap call, and he rolls over pocket aces, and under the gun actually rolls over pocket aces as well. So we've got pocket 7 versus aces and aces, haven't hit trips, and yeah, they're both drawing dead. So the river came a 4, didn't really matter. I had scoop a massive pot there, and yeah, my knight has picked up. So that was a little bit of a different call at the start. I definitely can see the way I should have probably folded that, but just against these players, I thought that was probably the best way to play. So, alright, so that's the second hand done. Okay, so then the third interesting hand of the night actually was one that I was actually on the button, which was a little bit different for me because I like to play my button pretty aggressively at times. But I had 9-10 suited, and yeah, so I just called the dollar, and then the big blind puts in a raise to $2. So, which is an unusual raise here. So normally someone go to 354, somewhere like that, 3 to 4 times the blind. Then we've got 3 other callers, and then I chuck in the calling chip, obviously. The flop comes 10, 6, 3, unsuited. I bet $6 on the flop. I have 1 fold and 2 callers. So we're going to the turn. The turn is the 9, which was a bit of a scare card because if anyone's holding 7, 8, they now got there. But it also gave me 2 pairs, so I thought let's put people to a test here. So I bet $22 into the pot, which is quite a large bet into that pot. But I didn't want somebody to call with potentially 8 or even a 7 and potentially get there on the river, and then both fold. So I took down the pot. The reason I added this one is because sometimes you need to play a little bit more aggressively when you hit 2 pair, and you've got to give people less equity. So scooped a nice little pot there, and just keep building that stack. Okay, and then the fourth interesting hand of the night, actually, I was on Big Blind again, which is really weird for this blog that Big Blind, I seem to be getting a lot of action on Big Blind. So it folded around to the loose aggressive player on the button, which I've tangled a few times now. He was the one that beat me on that first hand, and then he was also the one that I beat with the pocket aces with the 7. So he just calls, and then the small blind completes to just call the dollar as well, and it's around to me, and I look down at ace 8 unsuited. So ace 8 unsuited, could put a raise in here, but knowing the players that I'm playing against, I decided not to. I decided just to check it to try and trap if an ace does fall on the flop. Well, unfortunately, the ace didn't fall, but it comes 6, 10, 10. Now, I'm in a little bit of a difficult position here because I'm in basically middle position because I've got a player to act before me and a player to act behind me. And sort of when a flop like 6, 10, 10 comes, somebody's either hit it massively or completely missed. So I decided to wait to see what the first small blind did. He checked it. So I just checked behind, and the player on the button bet $4. The small blind calls. I'm thinking at this stage that neither of them has a 10, purely because I don't think the button would have pushed with a 10 here. and the small blind was playing pretty loose at this stage. He's not normally a loose player, but he was playing pretty loose. So I just called the $4. On the turn, the 8 comes off, so I've two paired it now. So the small blind checks, I check, the button decides on a check. So check through there. The river comes the 5. The 5. So I don't know what I'm thinking here. I'm sort of thinking, what should I do? So the small blind checks. I check as well. I wanted to get to showdown because I do have showdown value, and the button goes all in for 32. So tough decision here. The small blind announces that he's going to call and just says to everybody at the table that he's got a 6, so he has to call it. So I know I'm beating the small blind. So it puts me in a tough position because the loose aggressive player could have been betting with a 6 here. But the small blind having a 6 probably means that he doesn't have a 6. I was a little bit concerned about 4-7, knowing that the straight could have got there. I was also a little bit concerned about the 7-9 as well, because a 7-9 the straight got there as well. So I didn't really know what to do in this position. After the small blind obviously announced that he had the 6, I decided on a call, and unfortunately I read it right. When it comes to the guy on the button, shows over that he had the straight. So so he scoops the pot, and obviously I come second. I think in this hand, I think I played it completely wrong, to be honest with you. I think once I had hit that 8 on the turn, I think if I had put in a decent raise there, somewhere around that $12 mark, $13 mark, somewhere around there, I don't think the button's coming with me, because he did have a gut shot. But he is a loose aggressive player, so he might have come. But I still think if I put in, the correct play was probably to put a bet in a turn and not try and trap. So not try and just get to showdown cheap. But these things happen, unfortunately. So yeah, I lost a little bit of money in that hand. And then, yeah, so good lesson to be learnt there. And the last interesting hand for this session was actually a hand that I just like how I played it. It's nothing major has happened in it, but I'm in middle position, woke up with 6-8 unsuited. Hadn't played for a little bit, so thought that I'd sort of maintained a good, solid rep at the table. So I decided to put in a raise. I raised it to $4. It got folded around to the button. The button calls. And then folded around to the big blind, who also continues and calls for another $3. So the flop comes 10-3. So I have 6-8 suited. I'm second to act, so the first person checks. I decided I'll put in a raise of $11 just to try and get a bluff through. And both fold. So yeah, I got that bluff through, and very happy with how I played that. I sort of repped that I had a decent pocket pair. That's what I sort of put in everybody's mind, and when nothing sort of big came on the flop, I repped again that I'd hit, and I think that most players sort of gave me the credit for it, which was really good. So I'm glad I got that one through. So yeah, so that was a great end to the sort of night for me. So it was really good. Yeah, so that was the last interesting hand of the night. It was actually quite a good night. I bought in for 90 in total and cashed out 350, so a $260 profit, which is a really good night for those stakes. I only played for 3.5 hours, so it was a really good profit, good hourly rate there. There was a few things that I did right, a few things that I did wrong, but plenty of chances to learn. And yeah, it's just good to sort of be on the felt and be able to actually play a little bit of cash and make a few mistakes, and it doesn't really punish you that much. So yeah, no, it was really good. So I'll be doing another one of these poker blogs very shortly. I've got another cash session to actually do, so keep an eye out on that. Now, if you haven't liked this video or subscribed to the channel, I'd love you to do that. Subscribing just helps us be able to actually create more content, and you won't miss a video. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and I shall talk to you shortly.